Good afternoon. My name is Nicola Villa. I am the global lead for our government engagement programs at Mastercard. And I'm here today to talk to you about how governments are partnering with the private sector to enable resilience in the face of the adversities produced, of course, by the COVID-19 pandemic. I would like, first of all, to thank our friends and colleagues at Microsoft for giving me the opportunity to come and talk to all of you today. I would have loved to be there in person, but as you all know, travel is a challenge those days in Europe. And so I hope to be able to see many of you next time I'm in Portugal. You might be thinking about my Mastercard is presenting this topic. And so first of all, I always say the Mastercard is a global technology company that has been active in this space for a number of years. That happens to have grown up in the credit card business. So we are a global network that enables payments to be made around the world. We enable 87 billion transactions around the world, more than Google searches, right? With 2.5 billion clients and customers, accepted with 60 million organization merchants around the world, which is basically creating a global view of a business. So not only we enable payments, we are also able to help our customers, which are banks, retailers, merchants, and government, understand what is actually happening to the economy. So as we always say, again, Mastercard is, Amazon is not a river, Apple is not a fruit, and Mastercard is not a credit card company. So our network is based on the concept of trust. So we enable billions of transactions every year and hundreds of millions every day without having to sign a contract all the time between a consumer, a store that accepts payments, ourselves, and the banks in the middle of it. So we are a trusted network. And this trusted network has been used not only to enable financial transaction, but also, especially in the pandemic, in partnership with governments, in helping do other things. So what do we do exactly in the government space? So Mastercard partners today with hundreds of government agencies around the world in three major areas. The first area is the enablement of public services efficiency, where governments around the world disburse financial aid to families, to individuals, to small and medium enterprises. They tend to do this more and more digitally, and we enable those digital payments into the recipients, into the economy. But also when governments collect money from the economy, be them consumers or companies, we also have to do that. We have more than 300 projects in the cities and transit space where we're helping travelers get into a transit system by tapping in and out of it with their card or with their mobile phone. We process the payment on behalf of the transit authority, and we basically help doing that. So we are pushing the paper tickets out of the system, opening up the closed loop cards into this space, and basically enabling those new programs. So we help with efficiency, but we also help with inclusion. We are partnering with tens of government agencies around the world, both local and global and national, to help acceleration of the digitization of the small and medium enterprises. We help make SMEs more resilient by helping them transact digitally and getting paid and pay digitally, but also we provide education programs on how to trade, how to digitize, and how to do this in a cybersecure way. In the inclusion spaces where we are working with a lot of government agencies in the tourism sector to help understand how to build a resilient tourism industry by combining data and payments. And the third focus area for us is about helping governments innovate from an ecosystem, from an artificial intelligence, from a digital identity perspective. In other words, we set up co-creation programs with governments and we do co-innovation initiative in many technology areas. All this is underpinned by our ambition to drive a more resilient economy by enabling a number of programs. One which is worth mentioning today is called 1 Billion Stronger. So 6 years ago at the UN General Assembly in New York, we made a commitment to financially include 500 unbanked people into the formal economy all over the world. So we basically help people receive payments, subsidies, and so on electronically, but also pay electronically. And by doing this in 2020, we will reach our objective. We help basically financially include 500 million people into the formal economy all over the world. And so we basically raised the bar. We provided a commitment in 2020 to include another 500 million people. In particular, we look at small and medium enterprises, 50 million of them to become included, half of which, so 25 million, being small and medium enterprises run by female entrepreneurs. So we believe that by driving financial inclusion, we are helping drive the resiliency of the economy. And that's, in a nutshell, why Mastercard is actually engaged in the government space around the world. Now, the pandemic has accelerated our traction into this space. Right? So when COVID hit at the beginning of 2020, we suddenly got called by hundreds of agencies literally in the world. They asked us to help in three ways. One is they wanted to leverage on the analytics coming from our network, so our data analytics, to understand what damage was done to the economy by geography, by economic sector, and so forth. And so we started to share insights and dashboards with more than 150 agencies around the world to basically help them understand what the damage was done, so they could plan not only their relief actions, but also the recovery strategy as we do today. The second set of activities related to enabling fast payments into the economy so that people that were in need or companies that were in need could quickly receive subsidies, funds, and aid to be able to basically stay alive economically or even physically. Right? And the third set of focus was related to helping governments become more touchless. Many of the citizens around the world in our countries will not be able to go to a government office and, for example, pay for their taxes, for their parking bill, for their fines, and so on. So we help governments basically transact electronically with citizens and collect money in a digital way. And so 4 projects that I wanted to quickly touch on, which are Mediterranean, so close to all of you in Portugal. So first of all, in Israel, during the pandemic, we help the government and the National Post Office disburse pensions to 350,000 pensioners that in the middle of the pandemic, they could not go to the local government office to receive their pension in cash. So we issued prepaid cards. We shipped them to those 350,000 recipients who now are electronically receiving their pension without having to basically go out and literally risk their life. In Turkey, we partnered with the government and with 2 state-owned banks in providing financial aid to 1.1 million small and medium enterprises. Instead of trying to send cash or to ineffectively provide disbursements to the economy, we started to issue with those banks 1.1 million commercial credit cards, which were given in the hands of the Turkish small and medium enterprises. So the enterprises receive a monthly fee that helps them stay alive, but they also receive on their card access to credit. So the double amount of money by giving them a disbursement and credit so that those companies can basically start to thrive. In France, both at the national level and with the city of Paris, we started to share our data on consumer spend to help the operators in the tourism industry, so small companies in Paris that basically leverage on tourism, understand how to plan for the recovery that we saw over last summer. Right? So we launched with the city of Paris and with the region Île-de-France the barometer of Parisian tourism, which is basically a data dashboard that helps small companies understand what is happening to my economy, who's coming into Paris from which countries, and how do I offer them my services in a resilient way. And finally, in Portugal, we have a number of programs. One which is quite worth mentioning is the partnership that we launched with the Innovation Association of Turismo de Portugal, NEST, right? Where we are starting to not only share data on the status of the tourist economy, but also we started to launch some startup programs, right? So some design thinking exercises to rethink about the experience that tourists will have when they come back into Portugal, hopefully in the spring and in the summer. So these are examples on how we started to become a stronger partner and a much more aligned organization to many of the governments with whom we were trying to partner in the past. So in many ways, COVID has accelerated our relevance and our businesses in the government space. So the question that I was asked to think about is not only what a digital transformation nation looks like, but also what do we learn from those hundreds of partnerships that we developed together with the public sector. And we basically learned three things. One is we learned that prompt and adequate reaction is key. We moved from a situation in which the public and the private sector will work together for 2 years to launch a digital program, be it digital payments or be it, citizen services. Now the cycle time shrunk from 2 years to 2 months. So we are all acting in a much more entropic and fast environment. Things are changing on a daily and weekly basis, especially with the pandemic those days, which also means that those organizations in the public and the private sector that had built a relationship, right? So when programs were already in place between the public and the private sector, we were easier and quicker to answer and to basically provide support into the economy. So public-private partnerships are accelerating in shorter amount of times. The second learning for us is that an holistic perspective to solving these problems, which are very complex in COVID, is crucial, right? So we saw how the public and the private sector came together and, for example, used economic data to understand how to better provide financial support electronically to those in need, engaging them through online platforms like the one that Microsoft has around the world and in Portugal, and then making the entire experience cyber secure and fraud free. So bringing all those pieces together, which usually are managed by different organizations in the public and the private sector, again, has been a key to success and to quick reaction. And the last point is very simple. Digitization drives recovery. We saw the acceleration of the deployment of digital infrastructure, digital services, and we saw a much stronger correlation between those who are digitally enabled, whose national infrastructure, for example, from a government perspective, is already there, broadband, digital payments, artificial intelligence programs. So those are the ones that basically seem to be recovering economically much more quickly and are driving resilience into the government, but also driving resilience into the segment which is mostly impacted by COVID from an economic perspective, which is the small and medium enterprises. So these are the three learnings. But probably what we learn most of all is that imagining is the key. The pandemic is giving us the opportunity to accelerate some of our imagination. And so imagine, for example, if we could all work together with the Portuguese government in helping much more efficiently disburse aid to the agricultural sector, which has been particularly impacted. Imagine if we could help those who are disadvantaged in the small and medium enterprise sector become much more quickly digital and therefore be able to trade their services in Portugal or abroad. Imagine if we could help the tourism operators in Portugal understand how the economic recovery works in the next 6 to 12 months, and I'm sure it will work and we will start again, and then basically provide better services to those who are going to come from abroad. Or imagine how we could be resetting entire economic sectors and make them more resilient. For example, if you look at what the European Commission is doing with their Green Growth program, we partner with consumers and help them understand what the impact of their behavior is on environmental sustainability and help them take that active change. So that imagination, the digitization, and the development of effective ecosystems between the private and the public sector are probably the last point that I would like to leave you with. And they are also our biggest learning. So I'd like to thank you again for the time that you provide in this short introduction. I look forward to meeting many of you next time over in Portugal. I am mobilizing already our colleagues in the region and in Portugal to be able to work with many of you in the public and private sector. And so all the best, and again, looking forward to meet many of you for next time when I'm over in Portugal. Bye-bye.